technology is good when it works, right? But we're up and running, so we're excited here, and Pastor Roger is going to lead his class right now. So I just want to invite you to, have a prayer with me, and then we can get that started right now. So, dear Father, we thank you so much for giving us the opportunity today to worship on the Sabbath day, and we thank you for the opportunity that we get to study your word together. And so I pray for you to bless this time here. May the same Spirit, the Holy Spirit that inspired the prophets of old to write these sacred words, may they um, help us to understand them today. In Jesus' name.
One, two. Good morning, everybody. We are going to, I'm going to have a little class for the next 30 minutes on communication. Communication, right? Everybody communicates one way or the other. So if you want to take pictures of the slides or take notes, you're welcome to. I'm going to help you with that um, on, on today. The first law of communication, the first law of communication is that everything communicates. That's the first law of communication. Everything communicates. If we want to start with a Bible text that is found, make sure that I'm going to turn this on. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 31 says, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, along with every form of malice." If you are in a relationship or if you live with anybody in your life, we did this one time for a banquet. So I wanna start us off so we can all participate. Let's play a little game called Who's the Weirdo? All right? Well, let's play a little game. Who's the weirdo? First question. What's the correct way to put the toilet paper with the like this or like this? What's the correct way? Over or under? Over or under? Let's vote. Over. How many over? Okay. How many under? Okay. How many never done it? So you have no idea. All right. Great. The way you do it. The way you do it. What is the correct way to get toothpaste out of the tube? What's the correct way? However, so is it okay? Is it okay? This I'm not gonna say this happens in my house, but this happens in my house. My wife's not here, so I want you guys to settle something that we've been arguing for the last 33 years. Is it okay to wash colors and lights together? Unless you're in a rush. That is a great answer. That is a great answer. We have been fighting, and for 33 years, I wash the clothes and she folds them. But she never notices that I put them all together, and she says, she says, what happens is that the colors run. And never has it happened to me except for during the pandemic. It happened to me, and then she caught me, and then we had issues. But, but do you, number three, do you let the water run when you brush your teeth? Yes or no? Huh? Not supposed to, but we do it. But we do it. Um, Communication, the first law of communication, I just told you about 5 minutes ago. What's the first law of communication? Everything communicates. All right? So here's some communication tips. Communication requires commitment. All right? And commitment, I love the way that David Brooks defines it. He defines commitment by falling in love with something or someone and then building a structure of behavior around it for those moments when love falters. So if you want to have better communication, when your son or daughter or spouse or friend come to you, you have to ask him a question. What is the question you're going to ask him? I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to put it up here. I want to make sure that right there on the top. Do you want to be helped, hugged, or heard? When somebody comes to talk to you, we have something called the advice monster, right? The advice monster is, no, you go on the other way. The advice monster is we automatically go into advice mode. But you need to ask the person who's talking to you, do you want to be helped, hugged, or heard? Especially if your parents should do this with your children. And if you're married or in a relationship, you should do this with your spouse. Here's an example. My wife came home one day and said, my boss mistreated me today. She mistreated me today. She asked me to get some beverages, and she gave me the wrong order. And she had one of those bosses that takes credit for the wins but blames everybody else's for the loss. Have you ever had a boss like this? So my wife was mistreated by her boss, and she came home and she was crying. And she started talking to me about all the stuff that this boss is doing to her, and she was very distraught and crying. And what do you think I said when she started telling me about all these issues? At that time, I did not know that. No. I said something very insensitive. That is exactly, who said that? That is exactly what I said. I said, you need to quit that job. We don't need that job. You can find another job. And my wife said, Roger, I am not a quitter. What does she want to do? Does she want to be helped? Did she want to be helped? No. She wanted to be what? Heard. All I want is somebody that I can vent with. Right? Somebody that I can just, all the stuff that I have inside, I want to get it out. So if you have a child, and the child comes home crying because there's a bully at school or is having problems with the homework, you have to ask your child, do you want to be helped, do you want to be hugged, or do you want to be heard? And this will help you in your communication. You got to avoid something called the advice monster. You know what the advice monster is? Advice monster is, I need to have advice and answers for everyone and every single problem others have. Have you ever been given advice from somebody that you did not ask advice from? I truly despise this. I don't like it when people give me advice that I haven't asked from. For example, the person that cuts my hair. Well, used to. I don't go to them anymore. I was going bald. And they say, you know you're going bald, right? I'm like, yes, I have something called a mirror. I can see it. But you probably shouldn't take hot showers and let the hot water go on your head. I'm like, I never heard about that stuff. The hot showers are going to make my hair. No, it's genetics. I'm bald because I have come from a family where men are bald. That's just what it is. I have to give you advice. If they were my kids, I remember when I was married, and we give unsolicited advice. When somebody starts talking to us about a problem, we go straight into advice monster mode. And this is a short circuit in communication. That's what happens. You short circuit because nobody likes unsolicited advice. So if this is you that I'm talking to today, let me give you the best advice that I have read. Stay curious longer. Okay? Stay curious longer. Let me give you a phrase that you can use. We're going to practice right now. This phrase, when your child, your spouse, your friend, your coworker starts talking to you, instead of going into advice mode, well, if I was you, and I remember that when that happened to me, this is what I did, because everybody does not have the same experience. Here's the best thing to say. You want to stay curious longer? How do you do that? Here's the phrase. Interesting. Tell me more. Okay? Now you. Interesting. Tell me more. My son came to me, he was 16. We were driving, coming home from school. And my son told me, Dad, me and my friend were talking. When a teenager tells you he's been talking with his friends, nothing good happens after that, right? So my son said, me and my friend were talking that when we graduate high school, for a whole year, listen to this idea. For a whole year, my friend and I, we want to travel the whole United States. Well, that sounds like a good idea, but this is how they wanted to do it. We want to go in the back of trains, wagons. I'm not talking about Amtrak. You know the trains I'm talking about with the graffiti? Cargo trains. We want to go in the back of cargo trains for a year, traveling from place to place to place to place. And we'll get off. They had like a whole plan. We're going to jump off and then take showers and eat and then get back on and travel the whole United States. And what my whole being, I'm telling you, I'm being very honest, my whole being wanted to say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's the dumbest thing I've ever. But I bit my tongue because I learned that I cannot, as a parent, have advice monster mode. So what did I tell my son? I just told you the phrase. What was the phrase that we used? Two phrases. Interesting, and what's the other one? Tell me more. And he started saying, well, we're going to do this and that. And every time he had a pause, I would say, interesting, tell me more. And we left the conversation without any resolution. And about 2 weeks later, he said, Dad, I've been thinking. And I was like, tell me more. I like the fact you're thinking. And he said, we're not going to do that. And I did a little dance inside. Have you ever done a little dance inside of yourself? But you're smiling in the outside, but you're dancing in the inside. And you're happy, but you don't want to overplay your hand. So I said, very good, Jonathan. I'm glad you came to that conclusion. If I had gone straight into advice monster, it's like, I can't believe you're doing that. We didn't raise you this way. You're supposed to go to college. What are you doing with your life? And went into the parent mode, he would have said, oh, because the fastest way to get your kids to do the opposite of what you want them is for you to forbid it. Absolutely not. Never. It's like, why are they telling me? So curiosity. So here's some questions. Imagine if I had done this with my wife when she came home and started talking to me about my boss was mistreating me. What's on your mind? And she started telling me about, and then I would have asked him, what else? Those are great questions for you to learn, right? What's the real challenge for you? What do you want? If I had asked my wife, what do you want? What would she have told me? I just wanted somebody to hear me out. But instead I went to quit that job. We don't need that job. What do you want? If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? What was most useful to you? And how can I help? Notice over here, how can I help is the last question. You don't go straight into what you need right now. I told you guys the other day that I had this pain in my stomach, and I put it online, I put it on Facebook. Worst place to ask for advice is Facebook, by the way. Lots of crazy people on Facebook with lots of crazy stuff. And they're like, whoa, you have your stomach hurt? You probably have stomach cancer. And then started all these recipes that you need to take um, and mix milk. I'm lactose intolerant. You need to mix milk with milk of magnesia, and I'm like, I'm gonna die from the remedy instead of the pain in the stomach, of my stomach. I'd rather go to a medical professional to help me out, right? So I want to listen to people. I want to listen to people. How about interruptions? What happens when somebody interrupts you all the time? Isn't that annoying, by the way? Mm-hmm. So, how do we deal with interruptions? Especially when they're interruptions to correct. Spouses do this. If we're honest, women do it more than men. If we're honest, we have to be honest because we're in church right now. My brother and his wife, my brother and his wife were with friends, and he went fishing, and he said, caught a trout that was 13 inches. And she said it was not 13 inches. She interjected herself in this conversation. It was not 13 inches. It was 12 and a half. And my brother asked her on the way home, why did you correct me? And she said, because accuracy is important. No, accuracy is annoying. It's annoying. This is the way we communicate between men and women. This is why, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. It's just, we communicate in such different ways. If you ask a man the following question, did you go to the mall? There's only two possible responses. Yes, I went to the mall, or no. And that's the end of the conversation. If you ask a woman, did you go to the mall? They'll tell you a story. It's like, yeah, I got in my car. By the way, the car needs cleaning. When are you going to clean the car? Because, we need to take it to the to the car wash. And by the way, how long has it been since we changed the oil in the car? And I was driving to the mall, and we went by a house. Remember the house that we used to in Christmas? By the way, Christmas is coming. Where are we going to get money for the gifts? And by the way, do we need to give your mom a gift this year? Because she hasn't really. And we start all this conversation, and a half an hour later, you have not gotten to the question. What was the original question? Have you go to the mall? And you have not gotten to the yes. Because for women, the most important part is the journey. Is the journey, and we're going to journey and talk about the journey. And for men, we want to get to where we're going. So, if you are having issues with somebody in your life interrupting you, please come to this accord. This is, I don't know, what's going on there? Whoa. Okay, got it. No, I got it. This is what my wife and I, this is what we agreed. Number one, if it's not sinful or hurtful, silence. There is no law that says you have to correct the other person. No law. Just smile, breathe deeply, and be quiet. Number two, if it's worrisome or maybe hurtful, provide feedback and allow to self-correct in private. And number three, if it's hurtful or sinful, state your displeasure at the moment. All right? So I'm teaching you two things about communication today. Everything communicates, right? You're going to avoid the advice monster. Let's see how you guys were doing on when your child comes or your spouse or your friend or your coworker, and they start telling you a problem. What do we ask? Do you want to be helped? Do you want to be hugged? Or do you want to be heard? Okay? And then what's a great question we can ask somebody when they're telling us a story so we don't interject ourselves with our advice? Interesting. Tell me more. Okay. Number two, not just your spouse, but just people in your life. Look at what the Bible says about words. All right? Notice the comparison the Bible uses. Kind words are like what, everybody? Honey. They cheer you up and make you feel strong. So, words are to a person like food is to a stomach. So whatever words you're saying, you're either feeding people or killing people. And it's amazing the weight of the words. Let me ask you something. I hope it's not too personal. What kind of words did you hear growing up? There's three possible answers. One, terrible, hurtful words. Two, silence. Nobody told you you're doing good or you're doing bad. You were just like irrelevant. Or three, helpful, life-giving words. Which one of those three did you grow up in? One, two, or three? Here's the lesson behind this. Words have weight. The weight of the words depends on who said them. That make sense? Okay, if I'm walking to the street in Valdosta and some random person says, "Hey, stupid," I look at them and I keep walking. Because the weight of the words depends on who said them. But if my father says, "You're stupid," or "You're dumb," that weight of those words are much heavier enough. So what happens is the words you grew up listening to create in your mind a soundtrack. For example, I love my dad, but there's a couple of soundtracks that I wish he had not told me because I've had to process it and change my soundtrack because of what I heard in my house. This is one thing that my dad said all the time. Be careful with people because people are trying to take advantage of you. So this is a soundtrack that he was told by his dad, who's probably was told by his dad, who my dad told me. People are trying to take advantage of you. So what does that do in the mind of a person? Everybody you meet, you don't give the benefit of the doubt. Your first reaction is, you have to prove to me that you're not trying to take advantage of me. So you make a barrier that's unnecessary. Is this making sense? Yeah. So when you go to buy a car and the car salesperson starts talking to you, what do you think automatically? You're trying to take advantage of me. Anytime somebody's trying to sell me something, even when people are doing nice things for you, you wonder, why are they so nice to me? Because this is a soundtrack that you have. My wife grew up with a different soundtrack. My wife's mother had severe mental health issues. So this is what my wife's mother would tell my wife. If you guys misbehave, and if something happens in our family, I'm going to kill myself. So what kind of soundtrack does this create in my wife's mind? I cannot, this is how she's grown up. I cannot have a bad day. Because if I have a bad day, what happens to my mom? She dies. So she cannot have a bad day. So what happens is when you can't have a bad day, you become controlling, which affects the relationship with other people because you can't have a bad day. You always have to be on. You always have to be happy. You always have to do stuff good. So you start anxiety on the inside comes out as control on the outside. So she had to work through these issues, and we had to go to counseling and understand what, because for me it would be like infuriating. Like, why are you trying to control me like this? Why do you? Because I would say, hey, can we Mexican? How about we Thai? And like everything I say, she would change, improve, or eliminate everything. And that was super frustrating. So I did not know where this came from until I realized, which had helped me to have compassion in my heart and it not become a point of contention. Because when you see somebody acting in hurtful ways, you don't ask yourself, what's wrong with you? You ask yourself, what happened to you? When somebody's acting a fool, you don't say, what's wrong with you? You say what? What happened to you? Because nobody, when they're born, are born negative or controlling or a liar or misbehaving or addicted to substances. When somebody does something that is out of pocket, you have to ask yourself, what happened to you? So when you inquire about a person's upbringing, you're going to see these soundtracks, right? I met a 17-year-old girl, and she told me, the 17-year-old girl told me, I'm never going to be happy with a man, or men are dogs. 17. Love is not meant for me. 17. She's now 37. How do you think her love life has gone? She stayed with a person for 10 years that ended up leaving, that gave her the worst, her best years were spent with a person that treated her the worst. But what won in her life was that soundtrack. The soundtrack is, I'm not worth loving. So I'm just going to settle for whoever gives me the little bit of attention, and I'm just going to sleep with them because that's, at least I feel something. And I'm just going to a lot of substances and a lot of alcohol and a lot of weed so I can forget at least for a couple of hours about all these voices inside of me who are telling me you're not worth loving. And that's a really painful way to live. This happens in your mind with your soundtracks of the words that people you were raised with told you. My dad did not mistreat me in words. He just didn't say anything. So when you were raised in a house, when you don't hear any affirmation, you start looking for affirmation from people. So what happens is, when I first started working, I wouldn't stop working because I was good at my job and people told me, you're good at your job. So I needed the affirmation. That's the hole that comes from the daddy issues. So this is why Christ is so important to us. Because when you hear God's voice referring to us, you know what God said when Jesus was being baptized? Jesus was being baptized, right, by John the Baptist. And there was a voice from heaven that said, this is my beloved Son. I am well pleased in him. So everybody there heard Jesus' Father say, this is my beloved Son. I am well pleased in him. And that's a phrase that has changed my life, because even though I didn't get affirmation from my earthly father, I know that my heavenly Father cares for me. And he is not trying to get me out of heaven. He's not looking for ways to keep me out on technicalities. God is not looking for ways to punish me. When I am in Jesus and Jesus is in me, the same words that were said to Jesus are said to me. That's why I can live my life with confidence, not cockiness, but confidence, because I have a God in heaven that says about me, Roger, this is my beloved son. And you have to wake up every day from now on telling yourself, these soundtracks that I have in my brain don't come from God. They come from the enemy. And the enemy wants to keep me connected to the bad stuff that happened in my past. But I want to speak to the next generation words that are like honey, that cheer up and make you feel strong. So some words cheer you up and make you feel strong. That means other words. What is the opposite of cheer you up and make you feel strong? What's the opposite of that? Sad and make you feel what? Weak. So some words make your kids weak and sad, and some words make your kids cheerful and strong. The weight of the words. So you need to tell yourself, it stops with me. I'm not going to repeat the same things that my parents taught me, not in our family, not for the rest of the time that we have here on earth. So, how do you know if you as a parent or a spouse are negative? Let me finish with this question. I'm going to teach you this last question, and then tell you a rule, and then we'll go on. The turkeys are on their way. We have all the turkeys that we got for you guys today are vegetarian. They only ate vegetables. So you don't have to feel bad about it. What is this? Read that question that is in the screen. How do you experience me? Okay, moms, dads, spouses, parents, friends. This is a great question to ask. Just don't be sensitive when they answer. I talk to kids all the time who say, my parents are always mad. Every time I come home, my parents mad. What's up with my parents? They're all stressed out all the time. Stress people, remember? So I asked my wife, I said, I'm not just going to teach this, I'm going to ask my wife. And I said, Kathy, how do you experience me? And she said, Roger, I experience you when we're driving. When we're driving, I experience you as anxious. Because my wife, in this relationship, my wife is the one who drives. She drives, and speed limits are only suggestions. Do you have anybody like this in your they're suggestions. They're like, 65, 75, it's what it is. But I wear glasses. And I don't use my glasses often because I tend to lose my glasses, so I only bring them out for special occasions. So when I'm driving, when my wife is driving, I do this. So if you're the one who drives fast, I saw some hands there, you usually have somebody in the car who's telling you how to drive, right? It's like, hey, stop. Hey, slower. Hey, don't go. Wait, slow. Hey, don't. You're going to crash. Hey, you're going to do. Wait. And that's me. Because at night, especially, I don't have any depth perception. So I think we're going to crash into the back of every car. It's like, hey, study, slow down. And she does this thing that we're driving in the highway. I don't know whoever does. I don't know if she's the only one who does this. If there's anyone, I think she's the only one in the world that does this. She drives, we're going in the highway. She goes on the left lane until almost the exit. And she does like the Dukes of Hazzard type situation. I'm like, you need to be getting over it. You got a mile. Like in a mile, then you start getting over to the right. That's what normal people do, right? But she, no, like 0.3 miles. Is that okay? I'm just going to pass this truck. And I'm like, eh. And she says, I experience you anxious. So you need to relax, Roger. Take a deep breath. I'm like, I'm going to take a deep breath right before I die in a crash. Is what I thought to myself. Ask your kids, how do you experience me? How do you experience me, husband? How do you experience me, girlfriend? How do you experience me, parents? How do you experience me? And you will have some insight about your life. I told you this week about a condition that people have, MRF. Remember that? What is MRF? Mad resting face. Some of us don't live our lives like this. I am serious by nature, not because I'm mad at the world or I'm mad at you, but everybody that meets me eventually will tell me, when I first met you, I thought you didn't like me because you were so serious. This is just my mad resting face. I am like this all the time. So when I realize this, I try intentionally to smile more. Because I know that other people experience me like I am mad at the world, which I am not. So, I'm going to leave you with this. This is what I'm hoping that you will use in your house from now on. Use the 6-for-1 rule. What is a 6-for-1 rule? For every correction or complaint, verbalize 6 expressions of celebration or admiration. What would happen in your life if this was practiced? If for every one thing you tell your kids about, you don't pick up your clothes, or you don't, for every one negative thing that you tell your kids, you say 6 positive things. For every one correction that you tell your husband, you do 6 positive things. What would happen to the climate, the atmosphere in your home? It would change immediately. But the reason we're not like this is because of what happened in our family of origin. But like I told you before, you don't have to repeat it. You can be different, right? You can be different. And just this little tidbit in there before I finish. When somebody gets excited and they're talking, the worst thing you can say to somebody is calm down. Nobody in the history of life has ever calmed down when you tell them to calm down. So what do? If somebody gets, what do? If you say, calm down, they go a level higher. So what do you do? What do you do? Instead of saying calm down, respond in a non-anxious way. So just your level. Don't match the intensity. It's interesting how the Bible says that. A gentle answer turns away wrath. But a harsh word, in other words, you match the level. And I know sometimes it's hard because people get on our nerves. Somebody say amen. People get on our nerves. Just take a deep breath, walk away, come back, talk about it once you are calm. Because matching the intensity leads but nothing but hurtful words. All right? We're going to take a 15-minute break. In 15 minutes, we're going to hear some songs. I'm going to do a little talk. And then at 12, we're going to give you the vegetarian turkeys. Amen. Vegetarian turkeys. All right, so it's a good time right now. If you need to go to the bathroom, just take a little breath air. And then we'll come back here again. At 11 o'clock on the dot, we will start. Thank you so much.